Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at SOB's here in New York City. Lonnie Liston Smith has made a very important mark in American music, and he's done it via jazz, via soul, via funk, via spirituals, gospel, blues, American roots music. This man has been sampled by R&B and hip-hop for the last 25 years. He's collaborated with great musical minds ranging from Art Blakey to Guru to Pharoah Sanders to Abbey Lincoln. Tonight he's making a very rare appearance here in New York City here at SOB's. And we're going to sit down and talk about his career, which spans some 45 years. We're also going to talk about his very monumental recordings on the Flying Dutchman label, which was founded by a producing pioneer by the name of Bob Thiel. We're also going to talk about his time playing with Miles Davis, as well as Pharoah Sanders, as well as him recording these monumental records that have left a very important niche in American black music. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the sounds of the legendary Lonnie Liston Smith live here at SOB's here in New York City. Welcome back.
All right, brother. It's good to be back.
It's not like you've been away. It's just that it seems like now you have just gone all over the world and you are performing some new music as well as the music that established your whole career.
Yeah, Brian, because what happened was, you know, I love the art of music, but the business of music can drive you crazy because they can definitely get real funky. And but then, so I said, well, maybe I take a break. But then I started talking to, you know, people in other fields of work. And so when it comes to money, everything always gets funny. So then I heard all these young musicians. I said, oh, okay. But for a while, I thought, you know, a lot of young musicians weren't playing real music. But there are some who really want to play. So that inspired me.
You know, you came into music as a young and an evolving artist, but now that you're on the back end, what are you seeing now? I mean, because here in America and overseas, the whole music scene is like night and day.
Oh, yeah, because it seemed like here in America now, we used a word earlier, which was what made sense when you said it was everything is becoming mindless, or they're dumbing down everything, and that's not good. Because I met kids over here and overseas that they've been going to dances, but they've never seen a live band. They've been used to the DJs, and so. But when you go overseas, the people do respect the creative music from America, you know, jazz and blues and gospel, because the only real music, original music that came out of America has been the gospel, blues, and jazz. And for some reason over here, they won't give you the credit that other countries do.
In your career, I have to. There's some parallels in your career that I admire, because you and Maurice White, the founder of Earth, Wind, and Fire, and the guys in Mandrill, and even, I would even say to a certain extent, Herbie Hancock, there's a lot of spiritual connections to your music.
Right. Well, Brian, that's the whole thing, because my background, my father was the Harmonizing Four Gospel group. So I grew up, I mean, I just came out of the womb exposed to music from day one. And I met people like Sam Cooke when he was with the Soul Stirrers, because they all used to come hang out at the house, the Dixon Hummingbirds. You know, I met, because they had festivals just like we have jazz festivals, gospel festivals. So you meet Mahalia Jackson, you meet all of them. And so when I wrote Expansions, that's what I was doing. I was expanding on that spirituality, you know, like expand your mind. And then I started studying all these different philosophies, Rosicrucian, Transcendental Meditation, and everything, Sufism, because I wanted to put this spirituality in the music, because music is the only universal language.
And there are only 12 notes.
Oh yeah, right. Especially there, there's only 12 notes, especially here in America, in the Western civilization. But you got some countries, I mean, they got a whole bunch of notes, like them Indian ragas and, you know, all that. But in America, you got these 12 notes, and you got to, that's why musicians, or the creative black musicians, they might bend the note and try to make another note. And so you really got to be very creative.
People really don't understand really how you evolved in the 70s without your experiences in the 60s. And you came out of the very last period of jazz music when it was about to expand into fusion, and you played with I guess one of your mentors and one of your heroes, Mr. Roland Kirk.
Oh yeah, that was interesting, Brian. Rosson Roland Kirk. I mean, he played 3 instruments simultaneously, and he wasn't joking. And he had a nose flute, and he would throw that in there. And so working with Rosson was very interesting because you know, you hear these 3 horns, and then I think, oh, that was my first recording. I did "Here Comes the Whistle Man" and "Please Don't Cry, Beautiful Edith." Those were my first recordings, and Rosson, you know, he was great.
That's my favorite live record. That's one of my favorite Roland Kirk records.
Okay.
That is a serious live record in the sense that in that particular record, because in the late 60s when Joel Dorn at Atlantic let him do what he do,
That's right.
This record was really kind of a blues / funky soul jazz record.
Wow, that's interesting. I'm glad to hear that because that was my first recording, and I think we did this, and people were in Atlantic Studios, and it was Joel Dorn. So, you know, when I get back home this weekend, I'm gonna pull that record out, for real.
Another one of your famous associations with the late Max Roach, and Max brought a whole nother dynamic of the drums and percussion to jazz, and his spirit, especially with civil rights, and just the fact that he wanted people to identify with roots music.
And Max was real serious, like you said, about the roots music. And I mean, what people don't realize, there was at the Newport Jazz Festival one time, and this was before, you remember when Dave Brubeck came up with Take 5? See, Max was the first to do all this 5/4 time, 7/4 time, and all this. And he taught the drummer how to play 5/4. And then that's when they came out, the next thing with Take 5. But, you know, Max was way ahead of his time. And you know, a lot of young people really need to do a lot of research on Max Roach, because he was playing all these different time signatures long time ago before anyone else was doing it.
What was it about Max and Roland Kirk? What was it that they instilled in you as a musician and as a person? Because, I mean, you got to understand these guys, because we haven't even talked about Art Blakey yet. Oh. But I can imagine that because all 3 of their spirits, and even Pharoah Sanders, it's just, they all present a different persona.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was Max. What I got from Max was very interesting because he played all these different times, and that's not easy, you know, to play 5/4, 7/4, and make it musical. And so I really, and then, you know, when I was with Max, Abby Lincoln, you know, they were married. So when I wasn't working with Max, he sent me on the road with Abby. So that was a good experience. And of course, I say about Rosson playing 3 instruments simultaneously. No one else has really done that. And like it's like that spirit as a certain spirit that runs through everyone. I mean, because you can hear it, you know, in all of us. It's hard to describe, you know, that spirit, because it was in the gospel. Because I remember the first time I heard Marian Anderson, or I heard Leontine Price. Oh man, I was shocked. I could hear that same spirit, you know, but, you know, in a different genre. So, and I think the young kids today have gotten away from that spirit.
Art Blakey was another very instrumental institution of jazz, and I say instrumental because the Doors, the musicians, from the time he started up until he died, and you were one of those musicians that walked through that door of the institution of Art Blakey.
That's a good way of putting it. The institution of Art Blakey was phenomenal. I mean, who came through there? Freddie Hubbard, Wayne Shorter. I'm just naming a few. All of the Bobby Timmons. Oh my goodness, Hard Silver. Woo! What Hard Silver could do with a quintet, but with Art used to blow my mind because Art didn't write any music, so we all would write songs. Because that's what everybody in the band wrote songs. We'd have rehearsals, And Art wouldn't show up until we had learned all the songs. But Brian, the thing was, Art would show up and sit and start playing, and he could play the songs as if he wrote the songs. I mean, he never heard the songs before, and he could do it every time.
Freddie Hubbard told me a story, God rest his soul, about the first couple of times he played with him, and he said that one night he was trying to compete with him. He was trying to get louder than him, and he said the last time he did that, his lip was messed up. Was there any kind of stories about what you should or should not do on the bandstand playing in the institution of Art Blakey?
Oh no, you can't get louder than Art Blakey. I mean he sounded like Beautiful Thunder, and it was and his groove or his pocket, you know, the feeling was so great, you know. So you just ride off of that and float and oh man, Art Blakey his institution was something else.
Another parts of your musical career is with the legendary Pharoah Sanders, and I think at this part of your musical career, this is when you kind of had an epiphany on where you wanted to go musically. And it was also another time you met another guy who would also become the producer of your first record, Mr. Bob Thiel.
Right, Brian, and people don't realize how important Bob Thiel was. He produced all the John Coltrane records. And he goes all the way back to, used to Buddy Holly. He used to produce his records. Bob Thiel was a real producer. And he never got in your way. That was one of his secrets. He never got in your way. And so when Pharoah and I first got together, Pharoah heard me as Slugs. And I was doing all kinds of different things on the piano, and I wanted more sound. So sometimes you know, I said, I want more sound. So you use, you know, your elbows, but you weren't banging. You were trying to get more sound. And then Pharoah could play more than one note, which is impossible. And then we heard Leon Thomas yodeling, and we said, oh my goodness. And do you know, we never had to really rehearse. It just all just flowed naturally and organically.
You know, and I think that's really and I didn't know that, because when you hear Train's records, there's just Jones and Garrison. There's a chemistry that you hear on record. And when you hear Pharoah Sanders, especially the Karma and the Thimby record, there's just, he let you guys do what you did.
That's it. I mean, everybody. That's the best way, and that's what I try to do with young musicians. You know, and you know, very few people do that today. Because that's the thing about, you know, even we. I guess we get to Miles too. That was one of Miles' secrets. So if you can put 4 or 5 guys together, and everyone can really be themselves and creative. I mean, you really can manifest some very creative, positive music.
And it was also the second record, Themby, that you pretty much put the piano aside and you found and opened up an instrument that kind of changed your life.
And it just happened. In other words, I go in the studio, and we in California. So I go in the studio, and all before that I'm playing the grand piano. So the grand piano is already, it's nothing you can do, just sitting there waiting for you. So Farrell was unpacking his horn, Cecil McBee was getting his bass together, and the drummer setting up the drums. So I'm just standing there, I see this instrument in the corner. I said, wow, what is that? So I asked the sound man, I said, what is that? The engineer, he said, that's a Fender Rhodes. So I went over there and started messing with it and the button, and I started writing this song. And you know, I wrote the first 12-bar 21st Century Blues. That's what the song is. And Farrell and everybody ran over and said, man, what are you doing? I said, I'm just writing this song. And they said, man, we got to do that. And they said, what are you going to call it? I said, well, it sounds like I'm floating through space. And I was studying astral projection. I said, let's call it Astral Traveling. And it is a 21st Century 12-bar blues. And from there, I just kept on expanding from that point.
You know, that's funny because you're talking about you had this epiphany about this instrument, but again, it goes back to Les McCann was using the electric piano at that time, because this is the late 60s, early 70s.
Right.
Herbie got into it.
Yeah.
Chick got into it.
Right.
Well, what took you so long? Because they were like 2 or 3 years ahead of you.
Yeah. Now, I don't know. I guess I probably never was exposed to it because I had never been around one. But the first time I saw it and walked over and touched it, I said, oh. And because you have to approach it. You can't approach it the same way you approach the grand piano, because it's a different feeling. The keys are not weighted, so that's a different touch. So certain songs sound better on the electric keyboards than certain songs sound better on the grand piano. So it's a different color, and that's what I was listening for. At the time you were recording with Pharoah Sanders, decided to start a label called Flying Dutchman Records, and you and him and and he had a great funk band called the Nightlighters that he put out, funky group. But your first record was recorded on this label, and this was the very first time that you were able to express yourself musically. How scared were you, and how ambitious were you at the same time? Brian, this is interesting, because I was working with Miles Davis. So Bob Thiel called me and said, man, people are talking about you all over the world, so you got to do a record. So now I looked at it, I said, well, okay, I'm with Miles Davis, so now I'm happy. I'm in heaven. So I said, well, I'll just do the record. Then I can say Lonnie Liston Smith has done a record. So I think we had some days off, so I went back to New York, and we did the record in one night, Astral Traveling. And so then I go back and join Miles. And I said, well, okay. Well, then I was satisfied. I said, well, now, Lonnie Liston Smith has his own record. I get a call, when the record comes out, Bob Thiel said, well, Lonnie, you got to go support your record. I said, man, are you insane? I'm with Miles Davis. I'm not leaving. So I told Miles, and then Miles just laughed, because, Miles been through this years ago. He said, man, that's the nature of the music business. You do a record, then you got to go out. And I said, oh, sure. So that's what happened. And then I put Lonnie Liston Smith and the Cosmic Echoes together, and we just went out and started traveling. And the next record was Cosmic Funk. And then when we got to Expansions, I mean, it took the whole world by storm.
What was the purpose of you starting the Cosmic Messengers? Because, like I said, we said earlier in the interview, I mean, this was a very spiritual and pure part of black music. And what you were doing was just, it was erotic, it was spiritual, but it was also funky.
Right. That's it. Well, when we got to Expansions, I said, okay, I wanna put the contemporary rhythms, the young kids were doing, but on top we were gonna still be playing, real jazz. And because everybody on that record was a real stone cold jazz musician. Cecil McBee, people thought Cecil McBee was playing upright bass.
Really?
That's it. And everybody thought, people, they studying that in these colleges. And I tell the kids, I said, no. And so, and it worked, because when I got to London, after Expansions came out, they said, Lonnie Liston Smith, you are the godfather of jazz, fusion, funk. And that's what I was trying to do. You could always keep the jazz, the improvisation in there, and overtop the contemporary rhythms. And Expansions did it.
I look at you and I look at Roy Ayers as pioneering a whole new way of how it's recorded and how you guys played it. And I look at musicians of my generation like Jamiroquai, or even, God rest his soul, Guru, who took the elements of jazz and wanted to introduce it to new people or new audiences. That has to be a compliment in the high order.
Oh yeah, but that's okay. Years ago, before we did Jazzmatazz, the first one, Donald Byrd, myself, and was Roy, and so I get this call from EMI. They said, well, we're gonna put this record together, rap meets jazz, and they said, do you want to play on? All of us played on one song. And they paid good money and all that. So I said, okay. But then they flew me to New York, and I did on it down the back street. But so I said, well, okay, that's it. So you get paid and you go about your business. The record comes out. Now MTV. They don't have jazz, right? MTV drove us crazy. look, y'all got to be on MTV, interviews. They said, this is history. Jazz meets rap, or rap meets jazz. And it just took off.
Music moving forward, what should Lonnie Liston Smith fans expect, and what is it that you want to do now? Because you've pretty much done everything.
Yeah, I guess I'm just enjoying the young musicians now. Because, you know, I'm hearing a lot of young drummers, young bass players, and they've introduced me to a whole bunch of young trumpet players who can really play, but they're not even working. So I would just really try to, if I can expose them as many as possible to the world, and you know, and just, and like I say, to have all these young kids into your music and sampling it and respecting it, you know, that makes you feel good. So I guess I'm just gonna just keep playing and you know, see where it all leads to.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report, reporting live here at SOB's here in New York City. I'd like to personally thank Mr. Lonnie Liston Smith for his time and his hospitality, as well as the staff and management here at SOB's. As always, please visit my website, www.thepacereport.com, for my weekly column as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Until next time, peace.